This is going to be divisive. Hey there guys, and happy whatever day it is that you're watching this video. So today's coffee is another one from Campbell and Syme. And I say it's divisive because it's an experimental lot that is co-fermented with blackberries. So yeah, this will be interesting. So get yourselves a coffee, put your feet up, relax, and welcome to perhaps the most divisive Today I Brewed. So why is this going to be divisive? Well, I'm all for experimentation. Come on, mister. Come on. No? Don't want to come up now? I'm all for experimentation, and I like seeing progression when it comes to increasing perhaps the tasting profiles. Come on then, if you want to come up. I think he's still a little bit camera shy. Come on. Come on. Let's see if I can get him up. Come on, big boy. No? He's here. I think he just wants to play, but he just wants his 15 minutes of fame to come back. But as I say, I'm all for progression, and I love to see people try new things, especially when it comes to coffee, to see if we can improve those profiles, the tasting notes, and see if we can get something out of the coffee that perhaps we couldn't have got through traditional methods. But this is a weird one. So let's talk about the coffee a little bit before we kind of go into the brewing and kind of tasting it and seeing what it's like. Now, the coffee itself is from Colombia, and it's from Santa Monica, and it's grown by a guy, I believe, who is called Gyro Arcilla. Gyro, something like that, I think. But it's from the Quindío region in Colombia. Now, the coffee itself is 100% Castillo, which is pretty cool. But the process of it is a 72-hour co-ferment honey process. It's grown at 1450 to 1500 meters above sea level. And the tasting notes here are blackberry, cherry cola, and fizz, which is an interesting tasting note, I think. So the coffee itself is dry anaerobically fermented for 72 hours, and it's during the fermentation process that they add the blackberries. The pulp is still on, as it's a honey process. But then the cherries are pulped and they're placed onto raised drying beds to dry until they've got the correct moisture levels. I don't know where I stand. I've tried one of these before ages ago when I worked at Roastology, and big up Steve Hampshire had brought in a peach co-ferment that was from Wogan Coffee. And it was certainly interesting because it kind of tasted like peach tea. And it was nice, it was, and it's nothing bad against the roasters that do these coffees, but I didn't particularly enjoy it as much as I wanted to. It was nice, but kind of not for me. And I always kind of feel that I prefer coffees that have their natural flavourings rather than an enhanced flavour done by various methods to enhance those notes. And this is kind of how I feel about this. Now, the coffee only came in a tin of about 100 grams, so I've had 2 brews before this, and this is the one that I think is the best one that I've done, maybe. We'll taste it and smell it. But it was roasted about a month ago, I think. Maybe a little bit before, so it's about 4 weeks old. Now, when I first tried it, I think a couple of days after roast, and it just kind of blew me away. I wouldn't say it was a wholly positive experience because the tasting notes were just so, there. Really fresh. So I've left it for a while and hoped that those notes would settle. And because of how these fermented coffees work, my palate just kind of picks up ferment, and I find it hard to get to the notes underneath. However, it's a different day, and perhaps my palate is more ready for such an intensely flavoured coffee. So let's talk about it. Let's kind of get into it. Let's talk about this coffee, and then we'll taste it. Now, I will admit, grinding the coffee was a pretty aromatic experience. The aroma was really juicy, and there was definitely fresh blackberry in there, kind of like when you pick them fresh off a bush. And now as it's sat here, I can smell that blackberry in a good way. There isn't so much ferment here at the minute, but it did get me excited to brew it. Now, I understand that this coffee is a little bit old, so you can see in the video, despite it looking beautiful while it's brewing, it did come through very quick. And it's funny because I ground this last week so my friend could try it, and it came through at about 420, whereas today it's come through at about 315, so very, very quick in terms of brewing a larger amount of coffee. But I was more excited this time than I was the previous 2 times that I've tried it. And this one just seemed a bit more mellow in terms of aroma, which for me was a plus. So yeah, based on the previous 2, I was more excited to drink it this time, but I remembered the intensity of the flavours before. But we're here. We are drinks ready. So let's give it a sniff. Let's see how it is today. As you can tell, I'm super enthusiastic. Now, there is a juiciness there. A real vibrant juiciness of blackberry. I kind of get the cherry cola thing, I think. I've not had it for a while, but it reminds me of it. But there is definitely juiciness in the aroma, and the blackberry is coming through quite nice. So let's taste it and see what it's like now on this brew. So it does have a much nicer body. Quite light. Well, I'd say light to medium. It's got a nice clean finish. And I can definitely get the blackberry and the cherry cola-ness. The fizz, I'm not entirely sure. Unless it's texture that's the fizziness. But there's a lovely acidity there. Very reminiscent of blackberry acidity. The downside of it though is there is a lingering to it. And it reminds me of kind of lingeriness you get when you leave a tea bag in for too long and it's quite dry. And that's kind of the thing that I've got. Now I will say, this tastes better than it has done the previous 2 times I've tried it. I'm not as offended by this as I was the previous 2 cups. However, in no disrespect whatsoever, it's not something I'd like to drink all the time. It's a nice treat, it's a nice bit of difference, but it's not something I want every day. Like, I don't think I could drink this coffee 5 days a week. But it's a nice experience. It's nice to try it. It's nice to kind of taste what is going on differently. And I know this isn't an entirely new thing, but you know, I don't think this is for me. But it might be for others. Other people might really dig that taste. But for me, it's just a bit drying, and I think the flavours are, for me, a bit fermenty, which isn't my cup of tea or coffee. But I appreciate the experimentation. I appreciate the work that's gone into it, and as I said, I really love the idea of progressing coffee. But for me, this isn't what I want. But it's roasted beautifully. It has a nice balance to it. And the flavour notes that are there are harmonious. They are clear. But I don't want to drink this every day. At least not yet. Maybe my palate will change in the future. But for now, this has been a nice treat, but not one that I want all the time. However, I will say, the packaging on this baby is stunning. Like, you can see it here, it's got a lovely picture on it, lovely information on the back, and it reminds me of the travel suite tins, which is awesome. It's a lovely container for it to come in, and you can tell the work's gone into it to make it as lovely on the outside as it is meant to be on the inside. So that's my thing on it. Not for me, but I encourage everyone else to try it, to see what you think. Is it for you? Is it not? Is this how you see the future of coffee, or do you prefer, like myself, more kind of traditional methods and traditional tasting notes? We'll leave that one for discussion. So I will go and finish this because I don't want to waste the coffee, because that would be bad. But thank you for joining me on this interesting episode of Today I Brewed. So if you've not got yourselves a coffee yet, go get yourselves one. Put your feet up, relax, kick back. But most importantly, thank you for joining me on Today I Brewed.